Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 309 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing, man?
I'm good, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. Always good when speaking with you. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here on last Friday, September 10th, at the Wörthersee Stadium in Klagenfurt, Austria. Over here, this one was on DAZN, promoted by Eddie Hearn. Topping the bill, Filip Hrgović, the heavyweight, now 13-0. He was able to beat Marko Radonjic, who had a perfect record, 22-0 with 22 KOs. I think 19 of those fights, though, were against debutants or heavyweight journeymen. So very padded. He was down 4 times in round 2 and once in round 3, and he retired at the end of round 3. That one was for the IBF International Heavyweight title. Completely exposed there. Quite a tough guy. But yeah, Filip Hrgović had too much for him, 13-0. On the undercard, Dalton Smith now 9-0. He was able to pick up a 10-round unanimous decision victory against Brian Pelaez, who is now 10-6. Very wide in the end. I expected Dalton Smith to get Pelaez out of there, to be honest with you, but yeah, kind of, I guess, a good thing to get those 10 important rounds in. What a prospect Dalton Smith is. Elsewhere on the undercard, I didn't actually know he was fighting till the last minute. John Ryder, he picked up win number 30. He's got 5 losses. It was a TKO in round 5 against Jozef Jurko, who's now 8-3. We've also got on the undercard Abbas Barral, now 10-1. He was able to beat in one round Jay Spencer, who's now 11-2. Abbas Barral, 9-1. Either I am having memory problems, which I have most of the time. I can't remember him losing his O. I just want to go back and see who he lost it to. He lost his O in the last fight against Jack Cauley. Okay, that doesn't really ring a bell, but okay. Right, moving out now to the Stade Roland Garros in Paris, France. Over here, this one was on ESPN+. Igor Mikhalkin, the Russian who was set to take a fight against Callum Johnson, it never ended up happening. He'd been in there with Sergei Kovalev. I think he beat Beterbiev a couple of times in the amateurs. All-round good fighter, very, very tough Russian. And he got in there with Mathieu Bordelic, who was a French fighter I'd never heard of, but Bordelic was able to pull off the upset in my eyes, but I don't think with the bookies. Mikhalkin now 24-3. It was for the vacant EBU European light heavyweight title. Bordelic now 21-1. Mikhalkin retired on his stall at the end of round 7. Very surprised to see that outcome. On the undercard, Tony Yoka now 11-0. A TKO in round 7 against Peter Milas, who's now 15-1. Milas, he had that fight against Kevin Johnson. He became one of the first people one of the only people around that time to stop Kevin Johnson. So I thought he had something special about him. I didn't see the fight, but I expected Tony Yoka to pull it out. But the stoppage win is quite impressive, I guess. Solomon Sissoko now 14-0, a retirement win for him after round 4 when Ismail Aliyev retired in the corner. His record now 13-3 with a draw. Iliev, it was for the WBA Intercontinental Super Welterweight title. Moving out now to the Sky Dome in Coventry, West Midlands, United Kingdom. What an unbelievable fight the main event was. Sam Eggington now 31-7. Close fight, a split decision win for Eggington over 12 rounds against the unbeaten Frenchman Bilal Jakitou, who is now 15-1. Eggington was cut as well, quite bad on his right eye. It was for the WBC Silver middleweight title. Sam Eggington hasn't looked too bad since he's moved up to 160. Some people saying he's the most improved fighter in the UK. I think it was Peter Fury who said that. I definitely can't get on board with that one. I don't often disagree with Peter Fury, but I've got to say, no way. It's got to be Maxie Hughes without question, surely. But yeah, Sam Eggington, since moving up, has looked pretty good. He beat Carlos Molina last time. He's beaten this unbeaten French guy who we didn't know anything about, but quite clearly had a lot of skills, did very well early on in the fight. But Sam Eggington did what he does, and it's break his man down and break his heart and put the pressure on for all of the rounds and ultimately wear you down, and that is what he did, and I felt that he deserved to win the fight. But yeah, it was very, very close. It was on Channel 5. Very, very good to see that one there. On the undercard, we had Casey Benjamin with a knockout win in 3 rounds against Jarko Putkonen. We had River Wilson Bent move to 10-0, a points win, a complete shutout against Gabor Gorbix, who's now 26-21 with 2 draws. Shakam Pitters, the former British champion, was able to beat completely again by a shutout over 8 rounds Farouk Daku, who's now 21-19 with a draw. Daku was down in the 7th round. Isaac Chamberlain with a first round retirement win against 2-6 with 3 draws Ben Thomas. Just seems like Isaac Chamberlain is just, I don't know if it's down to him. I don't think it probably is down to him, but it seems like years of his career is being wasted. I mean, he's still only had, this is his 14th fight here. He was down in the first round late on Ben Thomas, and I just can't understand why Isaac Chamberlain is fighting a guy who's 2-6 with 3 draws. He's got bundles of talent, Isaac Chamberlain, but it just seems like, I don't know what it is, man. I remember favouring him massively to beat Lawrence Okoli. Lawrence Okoli, beat him that night fair and square. He put on a brilliant performance at the O2 Arena, went on to win a world title. He's an unbeaten world champion, and that loss now has aged unbelievably for Chamberlain. It doesn't look bad at all. Chamberlain, though, just hasn't got going since then, and it's another losing record on his slate. I cannot understand what's going on there. Elsewhere on the card, Mick Hennessy Jr. now 7-1 with a draw. A KO in the first round against Maxims Dabrowskis, who's now 3-10. Stephen McKenna now 9-0, a points win over 6 against Musa Gary, the very stubborn Musa Gary. He had some skills as well, to be honest. The shutout, though, over 6 rounds for Stephen McKenna. His brother Aaron McKenna moved to 12-0 on the undercard as well. He also picked up a 6-round points win. He had his man down twice in the 6th and final round, and his man was Ivica Gogosevic, who's now 12-37 with 2 draws. The son of former heavyweight contender Scott Welch, his son Tommy Welch on the undercard as well. A shutout win on points for him over 4 against Alvaro Torrero. Tommy Welch now 5-0. Moving out now to the Casino del Sol in Tucson, Arizona, USA. All these fights, by the way, have took place on Friday that I've mentioned so far. Not much on the undercard, but I want to give a special shout out to Luis Alberto Lopez, 23-2 now. He took on Gabriel Flores Jr., who was an unbeaten prospect, 20-0. Things got a little bit tasty at the weigh-in. They got in each other's faces. Gabriel Flores did like the gun fingers in Lopez's face, and I don't want to say he got exposed, but Lopez boxed brilliantly. He hurt Flores numerous times, and he ended up pitching a complete shutout. So very pleased for Luis Lopez, who I think was the underdog going in, a bit more battle tested, I think, than Gabriel Flores. But yeah, Gabriel Flores, to lose like that completely by a shutout, didn't seem to have any answers for Lopez. He seemed like he ran out of ideas, seemed like he was pretty one-dimensional, to be honest with you. A lot of running, he just didn't know what to do, but he did go the distance. I don't know if there's a moral victory in there, but it was kind of demoralizing at the same time, so I don't know where the needle falls there. But wanted to just give a special shout out there to Luis Lopez. Elsewhere on the card, Junto Nakatani now 22-0, a TKO in round 4 against Angel Acosta, who's now 22-3. That one was for Nakatani's WBO flyweight world title. Elsewhere on the card, the main event, Oscar Valdez now 30-0, a unanimous decision. That raises some eyebrows straight away. Over 12 rounds against Robson Conceição, who's now 16-1, the Brazilian fighter. Conceição had a point deducted for hitting Valdez behind the head in one of the rounds. A defense there of Valdez's WBC World Super Featherweight title. Very, very close fight. I think the Brazilian did enough, to be honest with you. I like Valdez, a lot of question marks, obviously, with the failed drug test in the build-up to the fight. It didn't seem like, if he was on PEDs, they made his performance any better. I felt like it was, not a very good version of Valdez. Certainly not the same version that took on Miguel Berchelt back in February. But yeah, Conceição, he's a box of tricks, really. He was, he had a lot to his game. I've never actually seen him before as a pro until the other night, and I've got to say he was a really good fighter, and you could see that amateur pedigree that he's got. His understanding of moving around the ring. I think they had a fight years ago in the amateurs. I believe Conceição won that one, but yeah, he definitely had an argument to win here as well. He wasn't happy about the decision. There was a 117-110 scorecard, which everyone was criticising. But yeah, I think the Brazilian did enough to nick it, but it was very close. I wasn't actually scoring it round by round, so I hope I haven't upset anyone with what I'm saying there, but that seemed like the general consensus was that Conceição nicked it, but some people disagreed, so I guess it was a close one, could have gone either way. But yeah, he didn't look very good, Valdez, I don't think, and I think a lot of people, after he knocked out Berchelt, a lot of people were probably worried about him, the top fighters in the division. If it was me, one of those guys, I'd be going, I'm not sure I want to fight Valdez, but after the other night, I'd now be licking my lips. So very strange to see two completely opposite performances from Valdez, and this is the time where he apparently I say, had something in his system that he shouldn't have had. Moving out now to the RCC Boxing Academy in Russia. Over here we had Zor Abdullayev, the former opponent of Devin Haney and Hank Lundy. He's now 14-1. A win unanimously over 12 rounds against former world champion Dejan Zlaticanin, who's now 24-3. Zlaticanin, obviously former lightweight world champion. I think he was WBC lightweight world champion. This one was for the WBC vacant silver lightweight title, but Zor Abdullayev, with quite a step up in class, really, picked up the win. I didn't see the fight, but it seems wide on the cards, so that looks good. That I think bodes well for Abdullayev, who a lot of people weren't sure how good he was actually after losing pretty much every round to Devin Haney. Elsewhere on the undercard, Evgeny Tashenko, the Olympic gold medalist in the heavyweight division from 2016, he bounced back from his loss to Tbiso Machunu here. He got in with one of the most devastating punchers at cruiserweight, Dmitry Kudryashov, who I think had only gone the distance in 2 of his 28 fights. Well, Kudryashov was down himself in the first round, but he did get back up, and I had money on this fight to not go the distance because both guys are knockout artists. And like I say, I think in their combined 37 fights, I believe they've had, is that right? I think it's 37 fights they've had combined. I think only 3 of them have gone the distance. And yeah, Kudryashov down in the first round. So I'm thinking, yeah, there's no way this is going the distance. But it did. Just goes to show, boxing is so unpredictable. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds for Evgeny Tashenko, now 9-1. Kudryashov now 24-5. It was for the vacant WBC International Cruiserweight title. Elsewhere on the undercard, that guy I told people to keep an eye on, Mohamed Kuja, Yakubov, is now 18-0. He made his opponent Christian Palmer, who was quite experienced, retire after 4 rounds in the corner. He was down in the 4th round. It was for the WBC International Super Featherweight title. Christian Palmer now 31-11 with 2 draws. Moving out now to the Pabellón de la Vall de Hebron in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain. This one again promoted by Eddie Hearn. He promoted a show on Friday night in Austria and on Saturday night in Spain. On the undercard over here, we had Kiko Martinez, former world champion, moved to 42 wins, 10 losses and 2 draws, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Jairo Duran, who was heavily overmatched. He's now 14-10. We had Mary Romero, the Spanish girl, who had a record of 6-2. She was the underdog against Britain's very own Amy Timlin, undefeated 4-0 with a draw. However, Mary Romero pretty much won every round, and then they pulled Amy Timlin out in the corner after 8 2-minute rounds. It was for the EBU European Female Super Bantamweight title. Timlin with a big setback there. She's got a lot of fans and followers and stuff like that, but that's quite a major setback there. I expected her to beat a girl who was 6-2. However, I hadn't really looked deep into those records there. Elsewhere on that card, let's talk about the main event. A brilliant fight. I mean, Sam Eggington's fight was Fight of the Year contender stuff. This fight here, not so sure it was Fight of the Year contender stuff, but certainly up there, very close. Kerman Leharaga, now 33-2, a technical decision win after 10 rounds against the previously undefeated Dylan Charat, who's now 20-1 with a draw. Very close again on the cards. It was called a halt in round 10. Leharaga had an injured right eye after an accidental head clash. It was a really good fight. Charat, again, was a Frenchman who I'd never seen before, just like Sam Eggington's opponent, Bilal Jakitou. An unbeaten Frenchman, never heard of him, never seen him fight or anything like that, but clearly had a lot of skills, and Charat was a really good mover. Didn't seem like he had the power to deter Leharaga from coming forward, and I was watching the fight, and I gave the first couple rounds, I think, to Charat, and then I think round 3 or round 4 was a little bit of a turning point for Leharaga, and Charat seemed to be feeling the pace as early as that 3rd or 4th round. And slowly but surely, Leharaga got back into the fight, turned it into his type of fight. He kept investing in the body, so the Frenchman would run out of steam and couldn't carry on all that, that lovely looking moving around the ring at times. And slowly but surely, it turned into Leharaga's fight. And when the pair were trading in a phone booth right up close next to each other, in front of each other, then Leharaga was getting the better of all of it. And like I said, it was very, very, very close. And Leharaga seemed quite confident when they went to the scorecards, and he did end up getting it. 96-94 on 2 and 95-95 on the 3rd scorecard. So very, very, very close. And everyone is calling for a rematch. I certainly want to see one. But yeah, Leharaga, never in a bad fight. Neither is Sam Eggington. I'm not sure if there can be a fight made there at some kind of weight, maybe at 154, but what a fight that would be. Moving out now to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida, USA. This one is the final card to mention. It was on Fight TV. It was on Triller. We had Andy Vences lose a majority decision over 10 rounds against Ireland's John O'Carroll, friend of the show. John O'Carroll now 20-2 with a draw. Andy Vences now 23-3 with a draw. One card from Fernando Barbosa, 95-95. The other 2 cards, I believe, were 97-93 for John O'Carroll. I think he did enough to win. Vences thought he did enough to win, but I certainly felt John O'Carroll did enough to win, and I'm really pleased for him because he's had some struggles outside of the ring recently. I saw something about his wife was pregnant with twins, and then I think lost one of the twins during the pregnancy and had to deliver one perfectly fine twin, and obviously the other twin, didn't arrive safely. So that's terrible. That's awful. And he's come back, and he, I think the fight might have even got moved. I think it was postponed, this fight. I think it was the second time it was supposed to happen, but he's come back. He's had to leave the family home, start training, get in shape, and put on a performance like that. And to be honest with you, it was very close on the money. That fight, when I looked at the odds and stuff, was like right in the balance. They were unsure who the favourite was. It was a real 50-50 fight, and it really was. And I'm pleased for John O'Carroll, who He's now wanting a world title fight next. I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch with him and Maxi Hughes, but if I was Maxi Hughes, just keep looking forward, my friend, because you have done more than anyone else to deserve a world title shot in Britain. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, really, really pleased for John O'Carroll, and he had a great time. You had 50 Cent ringside with champagne in his hand. I think the crowd took to John O'Carroll, and of course all the celebs in attendance. He took a few photos. It looked really cool. On the card as well, we saw, I'm going to just run through these really quick. Evander Holyfield obviously lost by knockout in one round. I'm going to come to you in a moment for that, Eddie. We had David Haye go the distance over 8 2-minute rounds against his multi-millionaire / billionaire, depends what article you read, friend and nightclub owner Joe Fournier. Joe Fournier going the distance there. That's something that I called, and I made some money on that one. What else did we have on that undercard? I think we also had Tito Ortiz against Anderson Silva. Tito Ortiz just went straight out on the attack. He was swarming Anderson Silva, who I think was just clowning around, and the shots weren't really landing with much power or anything. And Ortiz, I think, thought he had him hurt. He's all on top of him, throwing everything, looked quite slow, and then all of a sudden Anderson Silva times him with, I can't remember if it was a right hand or a left hand, but he timed him with a peach of a shot and knocked him out. It was brutal actually. One punch, goodbye, and he fell on his face. And I don't want to see Tito Ortiz in a ring or an octagon ever again. But yeah, I'm not going to really go into the Anderson Silva Ortiz stuff. Not really interested. We had Evander Holyfield. I'm going to come to you on that, Eddie. And I don't think you heard much of it, but I've got to say it. Donald Trump on the commentary was so much better than I thought he'd be. I mean, he is comedy gold. I've always said that. He's hilarious. But he was coming out with some really good stuff. Like, he actually knew his stuff for sure. And it was kind of cool. He invited Jorge Masvidal on the top table with him. And yeah, I've got to say, I mean, people were turning off 50 Cent's commentary to go and listen to Donald Trump because 50 Cent was barely saying anything. And Donald Trump, the crowd was saying, "We love Trump, we love Trump." He stood up. They did a 9/11 10-bell salute. He stood up and he was brilliant, Donald Trump. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kind of can't wait for him to come back and commentate again on another crazy circus of a card put on by Triller. But talk to me about the fight, Eddie. Evander Holyfield, Vita Belfort. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start or finish, but I'm sure it's going to be brief. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was. It just, shows that even great fighters have to get old. Nobody beats Father Time. No one. Eventually, he catches up to everybody. Even Bernard Hopkins, even some of these other guys who've been going so well for so late. And, for somebody being out of the ring for, 11 years or whatever it was he was out of the ring, to want to get back in. And I get it. You want to get in. You want to have another go at it. You want to, kind of remember your glory years and what you did when you were coming up and things like that. And that's awesome. But this is when you need somebody around you telling you the truth. You know what I mean? Like you're in the gym, you're sparring, you're working. There's guys around him that knew, man, he shouldn't be fighting. You know what I mean? Regardless of who he was fighting and whether they were good or any of that. It's just like he should not be swapping punches with anybody in the ring at this age. And it's not just about his age as much as about the wear and tear on his body and the amount of, time he spent as a fighter and the amount of wars he had. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the top guys ever in the heavyweight division. And at the time he was fighting, man, there was several other Hall of Famers around and he fought with them. Big, strong, tough guy. And Holyfield's not that big of a guy. He's not much bigger than I am. So you gotta think, man, there's people around him that know better. They knew better. They knew that he shouldn't have got in there. But, maybe he wanted, like he just want the spotlight again. Maybe you want a couple extra little dollars. You know what I mean? Maybe you want something else to talk about. But then now look at what's happening. Now they're talking about how how he's old, he got knocked out by somebody who's not really a boxer, and all this is doing is tarnishing some of his great past accomplishments. It's the same thing with Roy Jones. When I looked at Roy Jones, when he was trying to fight all these guys and he just kept fighting and kept getting knocked out, it makes you forget how great of a fighter they were in the past. And it's like, look, let it go. If you want to go to the gym and spar and work out and all of that, that's fine. But doing it in front of thousands of people and then putting your life on the line by getting there with these little gloves on, no. I just don't think it's a good idea. I'm one of the biggest Evander Holyfield fans, and I didn't want to watch it. Not saying that I didn't think he would win. I didn't know, because I didn't know how much of him was left. But it's just sad to see him go out like that.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And they're talk. I didn't like it, but straight afterwards, Evander Holyfield was angry at the stoppage. I think he had a point, to be honest with you, in that one, but I don't want to see him again. And 50 Cent thought it was a good idea to put his arm around Evander and say, hey, why don't you fight Mike Tyson in an exhibition? And of course, Holyfield's like, yeah, and they even mentioned about him fighting David Hay. I mean, no, please, someone, as you said, Eddie, has to look out for this guy's health and safety. He is a legend. He's got nothing else to prove at all. And I've got to say, Donald Trump made a great case, saying that Holyfield is one of the best heavyweights of all time and all the rest of it. He doesn't need to do this. And he said, that wasn't Evander in there. That was not Evander. But that's not my best Trump impression. So that's just on the spot. Anyway.
Again, no. All right, I had to laugh.
It's all good. But anyway, that is it though for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap this up, it's now time to welcome our special guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBA interim super-middleweight world champion. It is, of course, the Islington icon, Mr. John Ryder. John, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure having you on, John. It really is. I like to ask where you are, because you're always seemingly in different places. Where are you at the minute? You're at home, probably.
I'm just around the mother-in-law's, waiting to do a school run. So nothing exciting. I've been painting wardrobes this morning. So back down to earth.
Yeah, such a normal guy, man. So John, we last caught up in December. It was fight week for when you fought on the Golovkin undercard against Mike Guy. Obviously, you boxed the other night as well. But how had things been up until that fight the other night? Because you were coming off 9 months out. I'm guessing another fight must have fell through or something in that time.
Yeah, I mean, I was out to Dallas in May for the Saunders Canelo fight. Just to publicise myself, and I was training for the Dave Morel fight, which ended up falling through after I returned from Dallas. So that was a real kick in the teeth. I was training hard for that, and camp was flying. To then have a bit of time off and just slow things down again, and then eventually get out in September. But it's been a real slow year. But I'm hoping now that I've got this fight out of my way, got 5 rounds under my belt. Hopefully I can get out again before Christmas in a big fight, and then it's not been too bad of a year really. In the calendar year, I potentially could have had 3 fights. So, in current times, it's not bad going.
No, for sure. And you just boxed on the weekend against Jozef Jurko, which was on that Hrgovic Radonjic undercard in Austria. Bit of a random one. You did get the stoppage in round 5. Tell me about that fight and your performance, John.
Yeah, well, it's just I'd had COVID and just getting back into the gym, and Tony said about the potential of a tick over fight, and he was saying about the Leeds card, and I felt that was a bit too soon. It come a week later, but it's a perfect time really. I'd had like a 6-week camp coming back off of COVID, so I think it worked well. I wasn't at my sharpest and didn't expect to put in a career best, but you know what, it's one of them things. If you've got 12 weeks to get ready, it will take you 12 weeks. If you've only got 6 weeks to get ready, you can do it. So it's nice to dust off the cobwebs, get the fight out of the way, schedule 8 rounder, but get some rounds in and get a stoppage ultimately.
And 3 of your last 4 fights have been overseas, John. Do you enjoy or prefer perhaps boxing abroad?
Well, obviously, especially with current times, there's not been many crowds anyway, so it's not made too much of a difference. But I mean, I do like to have some support there, and it is nice to have a home crowd. But I mean, I've been lucky. You know, I've boxed in Vegas. I've got a lot of friends and family out there for that fight, which was nice. Miami was behind closed doors, which wasn't great. But I mean, Austria was nice. There was a bit of crowd back in. A lot of people from Croatia, obviously there for Hergovic. But yeah, I mean, it was nice to hear fans in the background, and it spurs you on that bit more.
And obviously, John, you'd been linked with David Lemieux for a long, long time. Has that fight seemingly fizzled out now?
Yeah, I mean, it's all gone quiet with that one. I've not really heard much on that. The ones of late was Dave Morel for the WBA regular Super-Middleweight title. And then lately there's been talk about moving up to 175 and fighting Bivol for the Super title. So, I mean, I'm open to both. I don't know what's happening with the Morel fight. It's going very quiet and there's a bit of to and fro-in. But, I mean, I don't want to be messed around anymore. I want to get in there and get fighting. So, whatever offer comes through and what's best to suit me.
I was going to mention, because you speak about a potential move to 175 for Bivol. I know a rematch with Callum Smith was something you wanted after controversially losing to him. Now he's decided to move up to 175. I thought that you kind of perhaps had to mentally let that one go. I didn't think you'd consider a move to 175.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go where the fights are. And I think currently at the moment, Canelo's got everything wrapped up at 168, and I mean, obviously, if he beats Plant, it's a big fight. Whoever wins, that's going to have everything wrapped up. And I mean, there's going to be no real title fights at 168 for a while till they get rid of the mandatories and whatnot. So it's going to be tied up for a while. So I'm in a good position where I can stay at 168. I can have a go at 175 and just go where the big fights take me.
And obviously we haven't spoken since your gym mate Craig Richards boxed Dmitry Bivol. You mentioned Bivol there. If nothing else, Craig showed us that Bivol is certainly beatable. I don't think we'd seen that in many of his prior fights. What did you make of Craig's performance? And, you know, I guess that Bivol fight now appeals to you massively.
To be fair, I feel like it was Craig's fight to lose. I don't think so much Bivol won the fight. I just think Craig didn't do enough early on. I think he let the first 6 rounds slip away from him, and when he did put his foot on the gas, he had Bivol in all kinds of trouble. But listen, there's a lot of inactivity. Craig's been quite active over the last year. He had the British title fight in December as well, and so he's gone into that Bivol fight fresh and in a good position, whereas Bivol's been that bit inactive. But listen, it's kind of Craig's fight to lose, and I mean, it was close in the end, but Craig didn't do much for the first 6 rounds, and I think he threw a bit too much caution to the wind, and I think he knows now that he can let his hands go a bit more earlier on and could have won it.
And I want to ask, John, obviously, you know, you're just fresh off your fight. I doubt you've had a extensive conversation with the team, with Matchroom and the rest of it. But you've mentioned, obviously, Morel. You've mentioned Dmitry Bivol. Is there... You know, are you leaning either way? Can you tell us anything about the chances of those 2 fights happening in terms of like 50-50 or 60-40?
Listen, I'm open to whatever deal is best suited to me financially and on terms. So I'll leave it down to Tony and Charlie and Eddie just to talk things through, mull things over, and they'll come to me with what's best for me, I'm sure.
And I want to get your take on this one. Only, about 9 days to go now? Yeah, 9 days to go. AJ Usyk, are you going to be there, and who wins?
I don't think I'm going to be there, but my missus actually booked tickets to Dermot Kennedy, so I think I'll be not too far away from White Hart Lane, but I'll be up the top of Alexandra Palace. Boogie on down to a bit of Dermot Kennedy, but I'll be watching as soon as I'm home for sure.
How do you see it unfolding, John?
Do you know what? It's a tough one. I mean, we know Usyk's got the skills, is like unbeatable at cruiserweight. But AJ's got that power. He's got his own. He's got a great boxing skill himself. I know everyone looks into the Ruiz fight. I don't know if Usyk's got the power to hurt AJ like Ruiz did. He definitely got the skills to beat AJ, but I think AJ will beat him down the strength. Maybe it'll be hard for AJ to catch him clean, but I think with the power punches and whatnot, they could really take their toll on Usyk. And that's not me going against Usyk. I'm a huge Usyk fan, but I don't think he's cut it in the performances so much at heavyweight yet. He lacked a bit of power, and he just hasn't got the finishing that he had at cruiserweight.
Yeah, I think that's fair, to be honest. I think it's going to be quite cagey. I definitely see the fight going into the second half. That's just my pick. Just before we wrap it up, John, if you've got any closing words, like I say, haven't spoke or had you on the show for 9 months. If there's anything you want to say to the listeners that I perhaps haven't asked you or anything like that, say whatever you like before we sign out.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for supporting. I hope to have some big news for you all soon. Trust the process like I am, and big things to come.
There we go. Listen, John, it's always great catching up with you, my friend. Congrats once again on the win, and we'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Brilliant, Joe. Thanks for having me, mate.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, usually the news, but we've got absolutely nothing to bring you at the moment. If anything develops from now to the end of the show, I will speak about it on the outro. Let's move then to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that takes place later tonight at the Quiet Cannon Country Club in California. The Quiet Cannon Country Club. You've got to be quiet in there. I believe, but you've got on the main event Sergey Bohachuk. That's the guy who, of course, managed to get to 18-0 with 18 KOs until he took on Brandon Adams and got knocked out himself in round 8. I believe that one was in Puerto Rico. Yes, it was on a Miguel Cotto show. Anyway, he bounced back with a first round knockout last time against Brandon Bow, who had a losing record. Here he gets in with Rafael Igbokwe, who is a southpaw, 5'10", 28 years of age, from Houston, Texas, actually. Okay. I want to say that he might have been a guy who I think... is it the same guy? Yeah, he's been sparring with Regis Prograis, actually, this guy here. Okay, interesting stuff. Anyway, he gets in with Sergey Bohachuk. We shall see what happens there. That's over 10 rounds. Bohachuk still never been the distance in 20 fights, so it's always entertaining seeing him fight. Elsewhere we have in York Hall, Bethnal Green, London, friend of the show, he was on a few years ago now, but he retired and he's coming out of about 3 years retirement to take on here a fight over 10 rounds. He's straight back in a 10-rounder. We're talking about, of course, Ben Jones, 22-7 with a draw, takes on Conor Marsden. It's for the vacant Southern Area lightweight title. Ben Jones, I think, has moved up in weight there. Moving out now to the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Over here, we've got Jesse Hart. Still, in my opinion, one of the best fighters from Philly at the moment. I mean, Philly has just been pumping out brilliant fighters for years. I mean, all the time. Like, you can look back and say, tell me one of the best fighters from Philly, and loads of names jump out at you. Just off the top of my head, like a Bernard or a Joe Frazier off the top of my head. Many other guys, of course, but all the time, like, there's never a moment where I don't think there's ever been, a time in recent history, at least, where there hasn't been at least one world-class fighter from Philly. Like, it's just crazy. It's not a huge place, but the amount of boxing talent is just wild that comes out of that place. And yeah, for me, Jesse Hart, hasn't won a world title yet, but I hope he wins one, man. He's right up there. I don't want him to be a nearly man, because he has been nearly there a couple of times. He's now 26-3 in an 8-rounder against Mike Guy, who has got a huge head. I remember him taking on John Ryder, and John Ryder, I don't think, got him out of there. Mike Guy 12-6 with a draw. All the best to Jesse Hart, like I say, friend of the show and one of those top Philly fighters. I mean, even right now, you think of Danny Garcia, you think of Jaron Ennis, you think of Stephen Fulton. How can you not mention him? I mean, oh my gosh, the talent in that place is B.Y. Jennings. It's just, the list goes on. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but we shall move on. Moving now to the Sports Society in Dubai. This one, nothing really on the undercard, just the main event to mention over here. We've got Martin Bakole, 16-1 in a 10-rounder against a guy called Haruna Osumanu, who I'd never heard of until this fight has been made. His record is 11-2. It's another easy fight, it would appear, for Martin Bakole. Just going to quickly look at that record there. 11-2. Both fights he's been knocked out in, and they are both of his last fights. He got knocked out against Ebenezer Tete. I remember him getting bounced off the canvas by Daniel Dubois in one round. Oh boy, he's 41 years of age, from Ghana, coming off 2 knockout losses in a row. That is terrible. I'm looking at his wins. He hasn't beaten a guy with a winning record. Oh boy. Terrible. Anyway, moving out now to the Mecca in Regent Circus, Swindon, Wiltshire, United Kingdom. We don't usually mention these small hall cards, but if you've been on the podcast before, then I will always mention your fights, and I'm talking about here Luke the Duke Watkins. He returns to the ring. Haven't really heard much since he lost to Isaac Chamberlain, and again, Chamberlain hasn't pushed on. I spoke about that earlier on in the show. Luke Watkins 14-2 in a 6-rounder against Tyrone Williams, who's 1-2, and on that undercard as well, buried quite deep, son of Lee Haskins, Anton Haskins, 2-0 as a pro in a 4-rounder. No opponent just yet for him. And that brings the preview part to an end. So like I say, we did the review part in part 1. We brought you our special guest. Part 2, there's been no news so far, and we've just wrapped up the preview part of the show. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 309 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest, one of my favourite boxers in the world, Mr. John Ryder. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. There has been a few pieces of news break whilst we've been recording the show. Emmanuel Navarrete's next fight's been announced. That's going to be taking place on October 15th in San Diego against former Shakur Stevenson opponent Joet Gonzalez. Frank Warren has announced a card for October 9th in Birmingham. I'm not sure if Callum Johnson is fighting the same guy he was supposed to be fighting, but he's on the card. You've got Liam Davies on the card as well. You've got Nick Ball on the card. You've got Echo Esserman against Danny Ball for the Commonwealth and British welterweight titles. Somebody's O must go. That's a great fight there. And you've got Brad Foster, 14-0 with 2 draws in a step up against Jason Cunningham, who I believe is coming off that excellent win against Gamal Yafai. That one's for the British, Commonwealth and European, EBU European Super Bantamweight titles. So a brilliant fight there in Birmingham. In other news, Mikey Garcia makes his long-awaited ring return against Spain's Sandor Martin. That one's set to take place October 16th in Fresno, California. Dillian White's opponent for October 30th has finally been announced. It's going to be against Otto Wallin. That should be a decent fight, to be honest. Some people not too pleased with it. I don't know. Who else could he have fought? Who else would you like him to have fought? They were speaking about, some American guys like Trevor Bryan and I think someone else, with a padded record from America. I'd rather see this fight, to be honest. We shall see. I think it's going to be a good one. Joseph Parker is having a rematch with Derek Chisora. That one's going to be taking place on December 18th. The only bad thing is it's going to clash with the undisputed fight between Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall, so that's a bit annoying. But I'm very surprised, to be honest, to see Joseph Parker taking that rematch. I don't think it's a fight he needed to have. And the rescheduled date for Brandon Figueroa against Stephen Fulton is now going to be November 27th in Las Vegas. So that's an excellent place to host an excellent fight. All the best to Figueroa, who of course is recovering from COVID, a good friend of the show. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.